northern Luzon, causing floods in several provinces. In La Trinidad, Benguet, chest-deep floodwaters almost submerged a vehicle. In Barangay Betag, strawberry farms were also not spared from Maring's wrath. In Gonzaga, Cagayan, the spillway overflowed, prompting the forced evacuation of residents along waterways. 14 towns in the province were flooded, while some areas, including those in Apayao, experienced power shortages. Meanwhile, strong winds toppled trees along the highway in La Union. Disaster officials continue to verify reports that at least 9 people from Benguet, Cagayan, and Palawan died in the aftermath of Maring. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council told CNN Philippines 2 others were injured in Cagayan, while 11 others are missing. Rescue operations continue.
Medyo nakakaranas pa rin po ng mga pag-uulan, although medyo umiigi na daw po dahil paalis na itong si Maring. Some of our rescuers po are having difficulties, lalo na dun sa area sa Narvacan. Medyo mabilis yung daloy ng tubig, pero andun na sila sa site. Best effort po ang ginagawang rescue operations doon. Sinisigurado lang natin na hindi madidisgrasya pati yung rescuers natin.
Malacanang says government agencies are monitoring the impact of Maring to provide proper assistance to those affected by the calamity. Aside from local governments, the Office of the Vice President has also deployed its own teams. A short effect tomorrow in Metro Manila. Shorter curfew hours taking effect tomorrow in Metro Manila as COVID-19 cases continue to go down. Metro Manila Council Chair and Parañaque City Mayor Edwin Olivares says instead of 10 p.m., curfew begins at 12 midnight and ends at 4 a.m. daily. Olivares explains this will also help in the economic recovery as more business establishments are allowed to operate. The Metro Manila Development Authority is also hoping for the easing of the alert level status in the region with the upcoming Christmas season. Based on Octa Research Group numbers, MMDA Chair Benher Abalos says the COVID-19 reproduction rate is now down to 0.61 on October 8, last Friday, from 1.25 on September 17.
Everything is going down, even the hospital. That is why the mayors really are praying that the alert level will also go down. No? In fact, right now, ginagalawan na namin yung economy. No? Talagang full support kami rito.
The Health Department reports 8,615 new COVID-19 infections today, with 236 more deaths and over 25,000 new recoveries. This brings the total number of cases to 2,683,372, of which over 82,000 are active cases. 3 laboratories failed to submit their data on time. The World Health Organization backs giving a 3rd dose of the COVID-19 vaccine to select groups. It says another shot of Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines should be offered to persons aged 60 and above, as well as those who are immunocompromised. The agency adds evidence shows a need for a 3rd dose for those who had 2 shots of inactivated vaccines produced by Chinese manufacturers. In September, the WHO called for a moratorium on the distribution of booster shots. The Philippines' biggest vaccine stock is Sinovac with over 40 million doses. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez had announced supplies are ready for the 3rd shot of over 1 million medical frontliners. Now, business owners are concerned about whether they can comply with the mandatory 13th month pay to their workers. Tristan Odalo spoke with both employers and employees in this report.
Business groups are calling for easing of restrictions and downgrading of Metro Manila's alert level to help businesses recover from the impact of stringent lockdowns. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion says some business owners are worried of not being able to fulfill the mandatory 30-month benefit of employees due to limited operations and income. Concepcion adds that 30% operating capacity is not enough to cover all business-related expenses. Restaurant groups tell CNN Philippines they're hoping to be allowed to operate to up to 50% beyond October 15 and from 80 to 100% capacity before the Christmas season.
As possible kasi we're already in the 4th quarter, and very soon a lot of the discussion now is about 13-month pay, for example. How are we going to be able to pay for that? Just let us open, give us more capacity, and we'll try to manage as best we can, right?
Some employees hope that a 13th-month pay won't be delayed, although they understand the impact of the pandemic and the series of lockdowns.
Huwag naman, kailangan sana gamot, pagkain, mga bayarin, papasko pa.
Aantayin na lang ganun kasi wala din tayong magagawa gawa ng pandemic talaga Pero mas maganda kung maibigay nila para ngayong darating na Pasko, kung magbabakasyon, edi may panggastos.
The Labor Department has yet to issue an advisory on the 13th-month benefit and the guidelines for those who can't afford to give it. Meantime, the Trade Department is also offering its CARES program for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to provide additional funding for businesses who cannot pay the 13th-month benefit of their employees. The said initiative has 6 billion funds for struggling businesses. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
The trade industry says it will provide loans to distressed micro, small, and medium enterprises through its financing arm, the SB Corporation. President Duterte taking the blame for the vaccine shortage early this year. In his weekly talk to the nation, Mr. Duterte reasoned out rich countries' hoarded doses and that the Philippines has no vaccine manufacturing firm, making it difficult to secure the shots. Here's the president in his own words.
At kung meron man na nagkasala dyan, aminin ko na lang. Kasi wala man rin akong magawa. Gusto kong bumili. Wala naman akong mabilihan. At kung makipag-contest ako doon sa mga mayaman, pabilihan ng bakuna, talagang huli ako. So yan dapat ninyong maintindihan. Ngayon, kung kasalanan man yan, walang iba dyan kung hindi ako na. Aaminin ko na yan.
The government says vaccine supply is no longer a problem. The country has received over 85 million doses. Coming up on Newsnight, we give you updates on the continuing rains despite severe tropical storm Maring's departure. And in the 2022 polls, nothing is final for the list of candidates until November 15. But one lawmaker steps forward to propose banning substitutions. These and more when we return.
Regent Mo.
Anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Pray ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Severe tropical storm Maring is now out of the country, but winds and rains continue to batter parts of Luzon. Pag-asa retains signal number 2 in Batanes and Babuyan Islands, where strong winds and heavy rainfall remain a threat. It is signal number 1 in more areas, including mainland Cagayan, Ilocos, the western portion of Isabela, Benguet, parts of Bataan, and several areas in extreme northern Luzon. Residents in affected areas are advised to prepare for possible landslides and flash floods. A House leader wants to scrap the substitution option for candidates of political parties. Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez says substitution should be prohibited unless a candidate dies or gets disqualified before Election Day. The lawmaker also wants to bring back the rule on aspirants resigning or being deemed automatically resigned from their posts upon the filing of their candidacies. He laments some presidential hopefuls are just proxies, although he did not mention any names. Under the law, the Commission on Elections can only finalize the list of candidates after the November 15 substitution deadline. Rodriguez believes his proposal will put a stop to what he calls the manipulation and mockery of the poll process. At least 2 senators also want the Omnibus Election Code amended to prohibit substitution. They say the provision is being abused. Senate President Tito Soto says the provision should be, quote, removed completely, while Senator Coco Pimentel says substitution should be done for serious contingencies and not to field a, quote, fake candidate as part of a political strategy. Now, earlier presidential aspirant Senator Bato de la Rosa said he's willing to give way to Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte if she decides to run. CMD Secretary General Prospero Pichay denies the party fielded presidential and vice presidential aspirants as placeholders, but he says they're open to making Mayor Duterte their substitute standard bearer. Pichay earlier said their final bets won't be known until November 15. Now, what does substitution really mean, and is it high time that we remove it? We go above and beyond the headlines with former COMELEC Commissioner Louie Guia. Good evening, sir, and welcome to Newsnight. Well, let's begin with this, sir. So we have a law that allows substitution, a provision in that law. But what was that the intent of the law, to allow people to file their candidacies para lang merong pwedeng kung gusto nila pwedeng may pumalit sa kanila para sila mga placeholder or proxy candidates? Yun po ba yung intent or hindi naman po talaga?
Now, let's look at the law. The law is Section 77 of the Omnibus Election Code. No, the Omnibus Election Code was passed in 1985. So probably the context of the law, or particularly that provision, was the what was happening in 1985. Now, when you look at the law even says that substitution for whatever reason, including withdrawal, can be done until midday of election day. It's only COMELEC that sort of advanced yung deadline sa November 15, dati December, no? To make sure that the names of all candidates are finalized in time for the printing of the ballot. But you have to remember also when the law was passed, the deadline for filing of certificates of candidacy was the day before the start of the campaign period. So ang daming pagbabago, may konteksto yung ating Omnibus Election Code na ina-apply. At probably politics is something that, it's a practical matter. So politicians will take advantage of the gaps in the law, siguro.
So what can we do about it, Louie? What is it na pwedeng gawin? Because, right now, what's happening is that ang dami nagre-react eh. Ang dami nagsasabing, ano yan, placeholder, proxy candidate, seryoso ba yan?
Let's
Or
put it this
mapipilitan na lang tumakbo kung hindi siya palitan? Paano po yun?
Let's put it this way, no? Our system requires that candidates must file certificates of candidacy within the period designated by law or by COMELEC. Okay? In this election, hanggang October 8 lang yon. Ngunit, meron ding provision ang ating electoral laws na sinasabi, pag member ka ng political party and the candidates that first submitted their certificates of candidacy as nominees of political parties, pag namatay, na-disqualify, o nag-withdraw, ay pwede silang palitan ng nominated ng the same political party. So that's an exception to the rule that all candidates must be those who have submitted their certificate of candidacy within the period provided by law. So that's an exception, so to speak, available under our legal framework. So probably yun ang ginagamit. But this is what I want to emphasize. A certificate of candidacy is an announcement by the one who filing it that he is presenting himself for consideration by the voters for the position that he is filing his certificate of candidacy for. Ibig sabihin yan, yung bona fide intention or good faith intention to file that certificate is a requirement which means that you have to pursue your candidacy up to election. That should have been your intention when you filed at the time that you filed it. But when you say that you're filing it and you don't really have intention to run, then I think my position is that you're in danger of having your certificate of candidacy canceled as a candidacy filed by a nuisance candidate. Because Section 69 of the Omnibus Election Code is very clear. A certificate of candidacy that was filed without any bona fide intention to run is a nuisance candidacy and therefore should be canceled or denied due course. A certificate of candidacy that is canceled or denied due course means that the one who filed the certificate of candidacy has never been a candidate. Hindi siya pwedeng ma-substitute kung hindi siya kandidato.
Well, two things there, Com Louie. We can't legislate intention or good faith, hindi po ba? So, it really depends on the person who's filing the COC. He's presenting himself or herself in good faith and allowing the voters na, tingnan siya na posibleng kandidato, pero meron palang posibilidad na hindi siya matutuloy. When you say, so can you comment on that? And also, when you say na they run the risk of getting disqualified by the COMELEC. Let's take the case of Senator Bato de la Rosa, because he said that if Sara Duterte, well, of course, first she has to take an oath, no, na miyembro siya ng PDP Laban, maging miyembro siya ng political party, ng partido political na yon. And then kung ang sinasabi ni Bato kung gusto ni Sara na tumakbong presidente for PDP Laban, he will give way. So, paano po yun? How is the COMELEC going to handle this case?
Well, yung petition, yung kwan kasi yung declaration as a nuisance candidate, dapat may proceedings yan. So, kung merong bona fide intention or what, or none, yun ay factual issue na dapat nililiti sa COMELEC. So, there has to be a proceedings before COMELEC that would consider, that might, consider an allegation that this candidate, yung nag-file ng certificate of candidacy, walang bona fide intention or ang purpose niya lang gawing mockery yung electoral process, no? So ganun siguro yung kailangan ipakita yan in a proceeding, and then COMELEC will then have to consider the factual the proof that are presented by maybe the petitioner, giving a chance to the one who filed the certificate of candidate to respond para masabi kung talagang meron siyang intention.
Yeah.
Kaya medyo delikado yung minsan sinabi mong wala talaga akong kwan kasi gusto ko lang mag-play. Pag sinabi mo yung diretso, then there might, di ba pruweba yun? Na hindi mo talaga gusto maging presidente.
The other issue here po, oo nga. Well, the other issue here po is that usually yung sinasabing nuisance candidates or mga peking kandidato, mga independent, walang political party, and then yung makikita mo naman, di ba, sometimes we have a parade of people who present themselves as candidates. But in this case, Bato de la Rosa filed his certificate of candidacy for president as a member of PDP Laban, which is a legit, for lack of a better word, legit political party. So, paano po yun?
Well, kaya nga sinasabi ko, kaya theoretical yung sinasabi ko, no? Pag wala kang pinakitang totoong intention na gawing tuloy-tuloy yung iyong patakbo mo hanggang sa araw ng eleksyon, ay hindi ka bona fide candidate, no? Kahit ikaw ay magaling, kahit matino ang pag-iisip mo, ang importante doon yung intention mo na i-pursue yung iyong candidacy up to the end. That is what kasi yun yung ritual, yun yung importante, yun yung solemnity ng filing of certificate of candidacy. It's not just an empty ritual. Sinasabi mo sa taong bayan that I am running. You should mean it, that you are actually running. So, of course, mayroong presumption that when you file it, you meant, you mean na
Correct.
talagang gusto mong manalo at gusto mong tumakbo. Pero kung merong mga ebidensya na nagpapakita na wala yung intention na yon, walang good faith intention, then probably there might be a case there for you to be declared a nuisance candidate.
In other words, bakit kayo magfa-file kung hindi pala kayo tatakbo? Former Comelec Commissioner Luis Diaz, I'm sorry sir, we ran out of time, but yes.
Ang sinabi ko, hindi ka pwedeng mag-file ng certificate of candidacy kung wala kang intention ituloy-tuloy yung iyong pangangandidato hanggang sa halalan. That's the basic import. That's the basic import of filing a certificate of candidacy.
Former Comelec Commissioner Luis Diaz, sir, thank you very much for your time tonight. The waiting game is not yet over, at least until November 15th. As early as now, what are we expecting from the 2022 hopefuls? This and more tonight at 8:30. Join me on Politics as Usual, only here on CNN Philippines. The Ombudsman junks the graft complaint against former Tourism Secretary Wanda Teo, her brother Ben Tulfo, and 4 others over the controversial 60 million peso ad deal with state-run People's Television. The reason, lack of probable cause. Ombudsman Samuel Martirez says conspiracy cannot be established because Teo was, quote, not in any way privy to the contract between PTV and Bitag Media. Bitag is owned by Teo's brother Ben. In 2018, state auditors flagged the multi-million peso deal for the lack of supporting documents and conflict of interest. The former DOT chief resigned from her post amid the controversy. When we return, makers of the new Superman take a new direction to reflect the experiences of many comic fans, and K-pop fans bound to feel special today as another group makes it to the Billboard Hot 100. Details after a short break.
Sa'yo, ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na, masakit ang katawan mo ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna, hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh, kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
Welcome back. One giant conglomerate hoping to revive a historical and crucial waterway. San Miguel Corporation claims progress in its Pasig River rehabilitation project with a waste collection from the main waterway reaching thousands of tons. Chrissy Di Matulak brings us up to speed.
During the wet season, flooding is just one of the many concerns of residents in Metro Manila. Traffic gets affected, and it becomes even more challenging for commuters who have to brave the busy roads. This problem can hopefully be solved soon after San Miguel Corporation successfully removed 54,000 metric tons of silt and solid waste from the Pasig River in just 3 months. Engineer Ben Ante, project engineer of the Pasig River cleanup, explains how removing trash can help with the flooding situation.
By increasing the hydraulic capacity of the river by widening and deepening it, it will allow floodwaters to flow freely, hence avoid overflowing.
The project is part of the much larger goal to clean up all major waterways in the National Capital Region and nearby provinces to allow water to freely flow into Manila Bay.
This 2 million pesos initiative will aim to extract 3 million cubic meters of dredged material at 50,000 cubic meter per month in 5 years. Besides the Pandakan and Malacanang area. Our next priorities are shallow and constricted waterways like C5 and Marikina Junction, wherein water disgorges from the Marikina River.
Ante takes us through the process of segregating the waste material. After the dredged material is unloaded in a temporary stockpile, the solid garbage is then separated and dumped in a Department of Environment and Natural Resources approved sanitary landfill in Bulacan. The remaining soil undergoes laboratory tests to determine if it is safe to use for landfills in commercial, residential, and industrial development. So far, Ante says the remaining waste they've collected is safe to use for land development. Chrissy De Matulak, CNN Philippines.
In entertainment, Superman is set to come out as bisexual in an upcoming comic series. DC Comics confirms that in the 5th issue of Superman, Son of Kal-El, lead character John Kent, Clark and Lane's son, falls for Jay Nakamura, a male reporter. Series writer Tom Taylor says this is so more people can see themselves in the most powerful superhero in comics. The Billboard Hot 100 continues to ride the Korean wave, welcoming another artist on the chart. This time it's twice. Following the likes of BTS, Blackpink, and Wonder Girls, they are only the 4th Korean music group to ever make it to the list. Their first English single, The Fields, placed 83rd this week. Fans celebrated the achievement with hashtag twice Hot 100 debut, taking to the top of Twitter trends earlier today. We get an update on a Star Trek Legends real-life space mission and a matinee idol taking on an iconic character. Here's CNN's David Daniel with the Hollywood Minute.
Here's your first look at Timothée Chalamet as Wonka. The actor posted the pic on social media. The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory prequel is now shooting in London.
Are you under control? Are you?
No. Jessica Chastain leads an all-star cast in The 355, about 4 female operatives who band together to stop a mercenary from using a top-secret weapon. This is the first trailer for the globe-trotting adventure, which also stars Dion Kruger and Oscar winners Lupita Nyong'o and Penelope Cruz. The 355 hits theaters January 7th.
Mr. Shatner, looking this way, please.
It'll be a bit longer than expected before William Shatner boldly goes where no nonagenarian has gone before. Windy weather forecast for Tuesday has prompted Blue Origin to bump the Star Trek Legends suborbital flight until Wednesday. Captain Kirk has waited 90 years to really go into space. He can wait one more day. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
We still have 74 days to go before Christmas, and that is it for tonight. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. See you later in politics as usual at 8:30 p.m.
Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. Presence sa Zinday Utso sa Dayan sa inyong radyo. RPN DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda, dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sidyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam na serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda, sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Pray ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
3 out of 100 Filipino women will get breast cancer before they reach the age of 75. Also, 1 out of 100 women will die before they get to that age. The Philippines has the #1 incidence of breast cancer among Asian countries and the 9th highest in the world. These grim numbers are also a reminder to us that the sooner one finds out that she has breast cancer, the higher the survival rate. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and here at the show, we'll talk to 2 women, 2 survivors. They are symbols of hope and courage. And today on Med Talk Health Talk, we'll listen to their stories. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Catching cancer early helps save lives. It's a message that we'd like to emphasize today on the program. And with that, I'd like to introduce our guest for today. We have Ms. Nicoy de Guzman. She is the president of I Can Serve Foundation Incorporated, a non-stock, non-profit organization that advocates early breast cancer detection through breast self-examination. Our next guest is Ms. Giselle Arroyo. She's a volunteer and member of the Communications Committee of I Can Serve Foundation. Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we definitely want to share your stories, your journey to as much as people as possible. With that, I'd like to start with Ms. Nicoy. First, you've had breast cancer not once, but twice. And each time it was stage 1. As we keep saying earlier, detection is key here. So, Ms. Nicoy, please tell us, what was it like when you first heard about your condition back in 2002.
10 months old then, and then I was carrying him like this way, playing with him. He accidentally kicked the breast, and it was so painful that I almost dropped him. I had to put him down. And then when I held that part that he kicked there, I felt the lump that prompted me to see my doctor.
Now, breast cancer runs in your family, Nicoy, and 12 years after recovering from your first bout of breast cancer, you found out that you had it again. So how often did you get tested knowing that you had somewhat of a strong family history?
I was actually having tests yearly talaga. Yearly yung test ko. Prior to having the first one, I was doing already breast exams because my mom's doctor, we had the same doctor, prompted me to do it. And then after that, after the first one, I was having it yearly also.
Much like Nicoy, you have family members who have had breast cancer as well. And similarly, you also found a lump in your breast incidentally or by accident, so to speak. This was probably around 2017 and you were around 36 years old.
I felt a lump when I was taking a shower, just through the normal course of scrubbing yourself with soap. I ran over it in my breast, and then I told my tita, who's also a breast cancer survivor and also very active with I Can Serve, and she's the one who told me to get a checkup right away.
Was the thought of breast cancer being in the family ever talked about?
Being aware of doing the checkups and stuff, it really didn't sink in with me because I was so young. My titas were in their, I think, 50s or 60s when they were diagnosed. So I guess when I was in my 30s, it wasn't in my consciousness that if I was going to get it so young. Actually, at first I thought the growth was just benign. So when the doctors started talking to me about treatment options, I was really shocked. But apparently there was something on the ultrasound that indicated that it could be malignant. So my tita was with me during my appointment. Actually, another tita, not one of the ones with history. So when we went home to the house, I couldn't talk. I couldn't even say anything. So she had to break the news to the family that I had to undergo further tests to find out if it was really cancer.
How about you, Nicoy? What was your initial reaction to the discovery of a lump in your breast?
It wasn't really that shocking because it's in the family. It's just that my age during the first diagnosis, I was just 28. So my maternal grandmother got it at 50, my mom was 40, and then I was 28, almost 30. So there's that parang pabata kami ng pabata.
What was the conversation with your doctor like initially? Were there any apprehensions? Were there so many questions that you wanted to ask but were afraid to? I'll start with Nicoy this time.
The first that I had was a lumpectomy to remove that, the mass. And then after that's the biopsy. And then that was when they called me and my parents to tell me that, the lump that they got was malignant. So, a lot of things were going in my mind. And if initially, I know it sounds morbid, but you would actually ask your doctor, am I gonna die? And then he was like, no. There are a lot of treatment options available. So, and then after that, you just have to psych yourself up and go for that treatment. You can do this, you can fight it.
Giselle, when you discovered that there was a lump and you had your conversation with your doctor, it actually took you no time to decide to undergo a frozen section biopsy. What made you decide to go through the step in this manner?
What made me decide to go with the frozen section, which would lead to an MRM if the result was that it was malignant, were the numbers. So he gave me like the odds, like what's the percentage of the chance of a recurrence of a lumpectomy versus doing a mastectomy, and given my profile, my body, and all of these factors, I just decided that mastectomy was the best option for me.
Nicoy, your son at that time you diagnosed for the first time was only 10 months old. What was going through your head at this time? Did you think about a future with your son as some of the motivations on why you made the decision to go through certain steps?
I think that was the only thing in my mind, how I would be going through this when my son is still young. Plus, I'm a single mom, so everything's really on me. Mm-hmm. So I really don't have a choice but, muster all my strength to go through an MRM like Giselle and then go through all the treatments that will follow because I have to survive and be there for him.
Now, coming up, treating breast cancer. What should one expect? We're your partner in health and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines.
Noon sa ka, nagbugot lagi ka. Kabalon ako. Ikapoy ka no. Sakit imong lawas tungod sa sobrang trabaho o sakit imong ulo tungod sa stress? Pahuway una, ginhawag lawom ug hiluta ang imong ulo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Kay mausab ni akong ginahimo. Maong akong taas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break sa
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
The most common invasive cancer in women, and it's also the second leading cause of cancer death in women after lung cancer. That's why early detection is key. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and you're watching MedTalk Health Talk, where your health always comes first. Now, this next question is for Ms. Nicoy. How soon after your diagnosis did you have the procedure done? And did you have to prepare for it mentally?
So I remember going to the doctor's office, like something like October 14, so that they can tell us the biopsy results. Mm-hmm. And then by October 16, I had my radical mastectomy already. So there wasn't really much time to prepare. Everything just, mabilis lang talaga. Plus getting blood from other donors for the operation itself. But other than that, there wasn't really much time to prepare. And there's a big difference dun sa second diagnosis ko, 12 years after, because that one with no biopsy results, the moment I felt the lump, I just knew I had to get my radical mastectomy right away.
Were there times where you wish that you'd have more support than there was at that time?
I think I was really fine because again, having it in the family, I grew up seeing my mom with just one breast, and there weren't really much issues. So I think for me lang, reading up and everything, it was the best option. So it was a go right away with a modified radical mastectomy both times.
Could you describe the treatment after the operation and how did this affect you naman?
During my first diagnosis, there wasn't subtyping yet, so I didn't know. It was just purely staging. So I was told I was stage 1 na, and then I would have to undergo 6 sessions of chemotherapy, and then no radiation treatment needed because it was a modified radical mastectomy. The second one, that was when the subtypes came in, and I found out that I'm a triple negative breast cancer. So still no just chemotherapy, but no radiation or maintenance medications after.
Now, I'd like to ask Giselle naman, for your experience, what was it like after the surgery?
My doctor gave me the option to do a test, undergo a genome test. So a portion of my specimen was sent off to a lab, I can't remember, I think in Amsterdam, to have it tested to find out if I needed chemo or not. And the result of the test was that I needed chemo. So I underwent 4 sessions of chemotherapy, and it turns out I was HER2 positive, which means I needed 18 cycles of trastuzumab after.
How was your will to fight at this time? Was it still, pretty good, and were you still pretty motivated to fight?
Yeah, absolutely. Because having breast cancer when you're young, it's like you're fighting for the rest of your life. Like, I want to be around, for a few more decades. So I was never not motivated to do the treatment. Plus, I had, my friends and my family. There's a never-ending stream of flowers and fruits and food that was sent to the house, and prayers and presents, and also a lot of support a lot of messages from friends who I hadn't heard from in a long time. So I never wanted in anything in terms of support.
Okay. How about you, Nicole? How was your support system during this whole journey?
The family was really my number one supporter. I'm the only girl after 3 boys, so just imagine how my family was. There's even a standing joke that in the hospital you'd think I owned it because everyone was there. It's like my whole clan was there during the treatments, and then I was already with I Can Serve for a very long time when the second cancer happened. So the support also of the sisterhood was there.
Take us through that second diagnosis when you had breast cancer for the second time.
You'd think that after the first one, after going through 6 chemotherapy sessions, you're done and like really, really well. But yeah, it's here again. So yeah, it's still shocking. But again, I was 40. It's still relatively young. So just like Giselle, I was like, I still have to fight it because I still want to live.
How did this come about? Was this by accident as well, or was it more of a conscious discovery?
Yes, it was a conscious discovery already. I was the one who really, really, felt that lump in one of my own breast self-exams.
The I Can Serve Foundation is all about promoting early breast cancer detection through breast self-examination. Now, Nicole, remind our audience what they need to do and how often should this be done?
Do this at least once a month, probably on the same day, more or less, of the month, always, and be aware of your body, of the changes happening in your body, especially your breasts. It's your body. It's your it's the only thing you have. So be aware and do check yourself before anyone else checks for you. Do check yourself, and again, consistency is key also, so that even just the small changes, even small lumps, can be detected.
Okay. And Ms. Giselle, for those women who have never done a self-breast exam, do you think it's hard? Do you think it's difficult to do?
I don't think it's really hard. Like I Can Serve has a lot of information. We have videos, and we have also art cards that have illustrated art cards on how to do it. So if they can just visit I Can Serve's website, and we have a YouTube channel where they can watch instructions on how to do it. And you just do it every month. It becomes a habit, and then it becomes easier.
Still to come, the main risk factors for breast cancer, and what are among those that you can actually change. We're here to inspire better health. You're watching CNN Philippines. We'll be back after a short break.
Huy, naunsa man ka? Nagbugot lagi ka. Kabalon ako. Ikapoy ka no. Sakit imong lawas tungod sa sobrang trabaho o sakit imong ulo tungod sa stress? Pahuway una, ginhawag lawom ug hiluta ang imong ulo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Kay mausab ni akong ginahimo. Maunga kung taas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag Herbalaya break sa
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid.
October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and today on the show we have two very extraordinary women whose lives were changed forever by this disease. And they're here to remind those of you who are watching that early detection can save lives. It's good to have you on the show today, Nicoy de Guzman and Giselle Arroyo. Both are from I Can Serve Foundation. I'd like to ask Giselle, were you extra mindful of your lifestyle? You were very fit when you first found out that you had breast cancer.
I would say I was decently fit. I wasn't super fit. But after I've become more conscious of exercising 3 to 4 weeks for at least an hour, even though I don't really enjoy doing it, I force myself to do it because I know it's part of prevention and having a healthy lifestyle. I also I've never been a smoker. So, like maybe in my whole lifetime, I've had less than a pack of cigarettes. But since having cancer, I haven't had a single one. And I don't drink alcohol anymore.
Now, Nicoy, in between the first and the second time that you had breast cancer, was your lifestyle affected? Your regimen, the kind of food you eat, the amount of exercise you take, was there a big difference?
I've been physically active ever since getting into many sports. So I guess for me, it was just really genes catching up with me, the family genes catching up with me. But up to now, I've been, I think I can say, more intentional with my fitness regimen. I'm a certified instructor for various disciplines. And for me, it's a simple thing of practicing what you preach.
Now, I'd like to ask Giselle, for those who are afraid, a lot of Filipinos oftentimes are afraid of the news that they may get if they undergo a test or if they go see a doctor. What can you say for those who are like that? What kind of courage can you advise for them?
For those who are afraid, the message you want them to know is that breast cancer is not a death sentence. It's very treatable. The earlier you find it, the better your chances are of beating it. And it's a journey that you'd never have to go through alone because, there's so many women in the Philippines, thousands of us who've been through this and we've all survived it and we're all doing well. So it's not a journey that you have to go through alone. There are many options available and it's something that can be overcome.
Now, Nicoy, what is your best advice for girls of all ages who may be afraid or maybe afraid of the thought of breast cancer? What's your best advice for them?
Still, early detection is the best protection. And again, be aware of your body, listen to your body, and be aware of the changes. And don't be afraid to see your doctor and have yourself checked. And if there are tests that you'd have to go through it also. Again, there's that possibility that what the lump or whatever there isn't malignant. Cancer is not a death sentence. Plus, the nature of Filipinos, we are just so supportive of each other. There's always a family member, a friend, a colleague who's willing to help you and listen to your story. So don't be afraid. Plus, I Can Serve is there also if you need further information.
Early detection is your best protection. And with that, I'd like to thank Giselle Arroyo and Nicoy de Guzman for joining us today. We're inspired by your strength, your courage, and your wisdom about breast cancer. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching.
Huy, naunsa man ka? Nagbugot lagi ka. Kabalon ako. Ikapoy ka no. Sakit imong lawas tungod sa sobrang trabaho o sakit imong ulo tungod sa stress? Pahuway una, ginhawag lawom ug hiluta ang imong ulo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Kay mausab ni akong ginahimo, maong akong taas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag Herbalaya break sa
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya sa bawat pahid